Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Television Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's always such a fun ride. You can find us on television. We are syndicated on Abundance Television, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com and all the social media sites. Can't get away with us from us if you tried, because now we are actually on the radio, the biggest powerhouse country station in South Carolina, WZLA. You can find us 92.9 there as well. And that's on Saturdays at 9 a.m. So we appreciate that platform as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Continue sending email to Donna@DonnasEdge.com, Donna@DonnasEdge.com. I'm working on a few other things, but I'll keep you grounded and let you know when all of that stuff happens too. Got my very dear friend Don Brown with me right now. He is he's actually an attorney, an author, and a speaker, and running for U.S. Senate. So glad you are, Don. So glad.
Well, thank you, Donna. Good to be here, and congratulations on WZLA, smart station, and all the stations need to syndicate with you, Donna. So I'm glad to hear that you got a big one down there. That's good news.
Well, I'm working on North Carolina too, so as soon as that materializes, I'll let you know about that too. But you can find us online any way you'd like to find us anyway. But Don, so glad you're running for U.S. Senate. We need patriots, big time patriots. And so I'm just seeing across the country, people are fed up with the nonsense. But I've got to ask you a question. Okay, are we electing you as a king or U.S. Senate? I mean, I just don't get the whole process of the king. First of all, off with their head. If you go out and do a protest with a king, and try Putin in Russian, try him. Let's see how far you get.
Well, you're applying logic again to crazy people. This Trump derangement syndrome thing it's gone off the charts. These people in this No King's Day protest are a bunch of nuts and have no grasp of reality. I guess they think it's okay to break the law. You know, if Trump were a king, he would have left office when they stole the election the first time. But hey, and you know, kings have the unconstitutional mandates and dictates. They're the ones that shut the country down and try to force these unconstitutional masks and jabs on everybody and try to shut people's businesses down and try to say that churches were not essential, but hoochie coochie bars are essential. So where are the kings? You know, I was in the county fair. You know, we've been campaigning all over North Carolina. Been in 60 out of 100 counties so far. And a couple of weeks ago, we were up at the Caldwell County Fair, and I was there at the Republican booth, and across the way there was a Democrat. The Democrat booth was over there. And I'm thinking first to myself, who in the world would go sit at the Democrat booth? You know, I can't fathom it. But they had a big old 10-foot picture of old Roy Cooper, the Democrat governor that shut the state down. And then they had a sign that said, democracy, not dictatorship. And I'm thinking, come on. First of all, we're not a democracy. You know, we're a constitutional republic. Secondly, you're the ones that put the dictatorship on everybody. So what they do, they accuse you of what they're guilty of themselves. And that's a lot of what No King's Day is about, to tell you the truth. Just the left pointing its finger out at other people when it's guilty of the things that it accuses the Republicans of. So it's really kind of amusing. But I mean, the more they do it, the more stupid they look, to tell you the truth.
No, you know when a Southern woman says "bless their hearts," you know what that really means. So bless their hearts. I saw actually several footages of nonsense, but one that really grabbed me was a bunch of people were dressed like sheep, and so okay, you call us sheep. You're the one. You're dressed like sheep at a No Kings rally. Now, what does that tell you?
Yeah, I saw one. I saw one dude dressed like a frog. Dressed like a frog.
You're
I don't know
leaping over the
yeah, I don't know if they're trying to say that they're sheep or everybody else is sheep, or if they're just trying to be like, what do they call those idiots in going to schools these days? Want to be furries or something? They claim they're some kind of an animal or something. You're supposed to respect that they're some kind of an animal.
well, that, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is they really think everybody is stupid. I mean, they really do. So there was some footage. It's supposed to be Boston, and the first thing you can see is the trees. Everything is green. It's like it's springtime. And then, so they do a fact check on it. It's something that happened like in 2017. It was probably a Trump rally or something, but it was clear that that was a summertime scene.
Right. Hey, oops, forgot to check a little detail before we try to fool the people.
Well, that was MSNBC who did that.
Usually, it'll come back to bite them one way or the other when they try that sort of thing. So, yeah. But I guess the last one they had. This No Kings thing was on June 14th. That was the Army's birthday, and it was Trump's birthday. So, they tried it again, I guess, over the weekend. And really, it turns into more of a clown show than anything else. And I really kind of enjoy them. They're kind of funny to watch. If they weren't such a waste of time, didn't bog down traffic. It's kind of like, you don't need to have, they've taken all these liberal comedians off the air. And so, but they do their own comedy. So, it's a funny thing to watch dumb people go out and make fools of themselves. That's for sure. It gives us a lot to laugh about.
Well, one more laugh. I know you're going to love this one. So I saw several where people were actually dressed like court jesters. And they're saying no king.
Yeah. They are the jesters for the king. They put on a king's outfit like they're the servant to the king.
Okay, let's talk out on the campaign trail. And so the emails that you've received, some are from North Carolina and some are actually from South Carolina. And there's one right here. Derek said he wishes you were running in South Carolina, and I sent him a text message back. I do too. I really do wish he was. But the North Carolinians are the ones that are, what can happen to fix the economy? Do you see anything happening on the uprise?
Well, I had this question last night. Last night I had this question. We were over in Moore County in Seven Lakes near the famous Pinehurst golf capital, and got that very same question. And there's a macro level and a micro level. In other words, there's a short-term discussion on the economy and a bigger term discussion. In the short term, Trump's on the right track. We're 200 and some days into this, and we have seen gasoline prices fall. We want to see them fall more, but they've fallen significantly where they were under Biden, which has given us a trickle down effect to help other prices as well. Eggs were out of control under Biden; they've come way down. So the first solution is to continue, in my opinion, to open up oil fields and to deregulate drilling opportunities. The more, when Trump left office the first time, we were exporting oil, and then Biden actually drained our national strategic petroleum reserves and shut down drilling, which shot up the price of oil. They went to war against oil and gas. Biden said he would do that, and the economic effect was huge. Now, the second thing is, and I'll say this, as I said last night, one of the biggest problems we got in the economy is the cost of health care. And the cost of health care is driven by a couple of things. One, Obamacare has sent the healthcare system to hell in a handbasket. Any middle-class person, you won't find many honest middle-class people who say that the healthcare cost or delivery have improved since this Obamacare thing. As a matter of fact, nobody can afford Blue Cross, which is the only insurer in town here in North Carolina, unless you are working for a mega corporation or working for a government that's paying for healthcare costs. And I think one of the ways to help with the economy is to bust up Blue Cross. I think we got to have antitrust with these huge medical insurance companies. There in South Carolina and Alabama and in North Carolina, you've got multiple options to shop for your car insurance and can find more competitive rates because it's not a monopoly. There's no reason you got to have a monopoly controlling healthcare. You see Blue Cross and these big insurance companies were in bed with Obama pushing Obamacare because it forces more money in their pockets, out of our pockets, Donna. So busting up Blue Cross and giving us more choice in insurance is going to help the economic effect as well. Now, I understand that, that may or may not be a direct effect on the grocery store, but, if you can reduce what you're paying for health insurance significantly, then that helps everywhere else. The other thing is, and I've talked to a number of folks about this who are, eligible now for Medicare, this Part B thing, you got to pay $180 a month or whatever. Well, Donna, you've already paid that money, and you and Phil aren't in that Medicare eligibility yet because you got to be a little older to be there. But when you get there, you'll see what I'm talking about. That money has already been paid, and you shouldn't have to be taxed on it again. So that's got to go. I'm going to fight for that. The larger picture, though, as I said a moment ago, there's a micro and a macro answer to the question. The larger question, and I've been continuing to beat this drum on the campaign trail as much as I can, is that the national debt is a ticking time bomb, and we're moving toward the edge. The other morning, I was headed up to the mountains to talk, and when I was doing that, I've got this little cell phone right here. I've shown this to you before. I got a crack case here and everything, but just for the heck of it, there's a website called usdebtclock.org. You may have been on it, Donna, and seen it. It shows the running debt. So I set this little baby for 1 minute, and then after a minute, it goes beep, 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 beep. And I look down to see how much the debt had increased. How much do you think that debt had increased in a minute, Donna? You have any idea? Just guessing.
Probably $1 trillion.
$2 million in 1 minute. We have a $37 trillion national debt. To break that down, the national debt is increasing right now at about $37,000 a second. That's $2 million a minute, $120 million an hour, and $2.8 billion a day. And under Trump, the rate is slowed down. It was increasing at $55,000 to $60,000 a second under the Democrats. Now it's down to 37. But we've got to attack it. And if we don't attack it, and reverse it, we're going to lose the dollar. If we lose the dollar, they're pushing for something called central bank digital currency. That's what they're pushing for, Donna. And by the way, this national debt is a deliberate attempt to destroy the dollar. The Doge cuts have to be memorialized in law. We have to take down the deep state of the federal government. In other words, all these 400 agencies. I'd say we need to take down. I'm going to propose a Deep State Reduction Act. Somebody said a Deep State Elimination Act. That's even better. But you got to propose taking out at least 2/3 of them, and you've got to apply that to the national debt. And rather than going into debt $37,000 a second, we need to be reducing the debt by $37,000 a second. But it's going to take radical surgery to do that. And my opponent, Mike Whatley's not talking about this. In Mike's defense, neither are any other Republicans. We got to wake up. The Republican Party has got to attack this issue. The Democrats are not going to do it. They're the ones that built the deep state to begin with. But our Republican Congress has been weak. We got to be stronger. That's a long answer to a short but a very good question. I didn't mean to ramble too long there.
Well, no, that's exactly the information we needed. But I wanted to mention this. A lot of this debt, most of it came in effect under Obama. You remember Michelle Obama's friend who actually did the healthcare website for $10 million? $10 million. And remember, it crashed numerous times. Okay, so pay somebody $10 million for a website and it still crashes.
Well, yeah, and Donna, that's a very good point, and I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's exactly right. The Obamacare website was a disaster trying to roll it, an absolute disaster, and because they were trying to roll it out by paying one of Michelle Obama's crony friends. But it's been this type of corrupt cronyism that has built the debt. And you're exactly right. Whether it's that, or whether it's giving out free Obama phones, or whether it's all these EBD cards they're passing out, or these massive welfare programs, or whatever it is, the government is not supposed to be a massive lollipop factory, give away free goodies. That's not what the Constitution is all about. But they've taken our money, and wasted it on crap like that. And that's why the debt's exploding. And you can see if we lose the dollar, Donna, the reason in my answer to your previous question, there's a micro solution that is more oil and less regulation and busted Blue Cross. But the macro solution is attacking the debt, because if that dollar goes off the cliff, you talk about fixing the economy, and it's not going to be fixable at that point. Well, if we lose the dollar, and so, but that's what you're correct. That's a very good point. Remember, cash for clunkers, all this kind of stuff that the Democrats and Republicans too have thrown money at. It's just got to come to an end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's unreasonable. Running a business like we do, you and I do, a small business, and every time I get anything from the IRS, I know I'm targeted because it happens often, and then I have to prove I'm innocent. I told you about the one I got, and they actually went past the 7 years. It was like 18 years or something. I don't remember. It was this incredible amount of time, and so we can't find anything on her. Let's go back, and that's during the Lewis Lerner years. That's when that happened. Well, thank God Phil didn't listen to me. When we moved, I said, let's throw away all that junk, from 7 years, and older. And he said, no, I don't trust the government. I'm bringing it. And I said, but it's boxes of stuff. We don't need that stuff. Well, I'm glad he didn't listen to me, because we found the boxes and we found the proof where we actually turned in the right receipts.
Well, and you're guilty until proven innocent in the eyes of the government. Especially but like I said earlier, you got to take out this deep state. The IRS is part of the deep state. In other words, what do we mean by deep state? We're talking about unelected bureaucrats, that make life hard on American citizens. Just like them, I've had it happen to me. They'll send you a bill and you don't owe the bill, or you in fact, I've had them owe me a refund, yet they'll send me a bill. And they do this in large part because most people just roll over and do whatever they say. So they can send a bill out. The IRS can send a bill out. Hey, you owe $500, $1,000, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Send it to 1 million people, and 2/3 of the people, or maybe even more, will comply with it. There are a few of us that'll fight it, but these are the deep state bureaucrats that have got to go. The IRS has to go. And again, I'll tell you one thing, going back to your friend's question earlier, you want to fix the economy, get rid of the income tax and replace it, if you need to replace it, with the fair tax. But I'd say keep the tariffs first. And only if you have to add the fair tax, add it, but it works a whole lot better. I got this question last night. We were speaking about 60, 65 people in Moore County. How are you going to replace the IRS? And I said, well, listen, when we go back to when we had tariffs only in the 1890s, under McKinley, and Trump told Joe Rogan he was right. They were making so much money, they had to find a commission, figure out how to spend it. There was zero income tax at all. First off, you go there. And if you got to add more, then you go to the fair tax that Huckabee has talked about. Huckabee is now the ambassador to Israel, but when he was a former governor. And so you're going to have an assessment off initial sales only, not secondary sales. So you're not going to go to the flea market and buy and sell all you want without it being taxed at all. But that way, everybody can determine what your tax is going to be by what you spend. That's the only fair way to do it. And that's a way to fix the economy. Let me tell you, because the economy is suffering in large part because, and Trump has made tremendous progress already with taxation and deregulation. And we're headed in the right direction. But the more we can speed that up, and the more we can move toward ending this income tax morass that we've been in, the more quickly the economy is going to come to a true median where we're operating on a free capital markets, and things will settle down at that point.
Jason had a question for you too, and this pertains to people who are on welfare, food stamps, or whatever the pretty word is they call it nowadays. But anyway, these are people, and you and I've discussed this before. These are people who have made a career and then generational careers out of food stamps, welfare, all that kind of stuff. And there's no integrity. I mean, people boast of it. I remember back in the 1960s, my parents had friends who, the guy, I forgot if it was him or his wife, had to go to the hospital, and they had mounting bills. It was just, it was terrible. It was I think it was an accident. But anyway, hospital bills were really high, so they had to file bankruptcy. And they were not proud to do it either. They were just, they confided in my parents and told them because they were good friends of ours. And so they were talking about the embarrassment of having to go get food stamps. It was just embarrassing to them. And they said, I just hope nobody in the grocery store line saw us. and saw us with the food stamps, paying for those. But now it's almost like people are proud to get that. I mean, they're happy to. As a matter of fact, they flaunt it. And I mean, so what has happened to common? I'm okay with a little bit of pride, and so some of the church people will say, "Well, no, you can't have pride." I don't think that's what that means. I think you need to have pride in yourself a little bit, and try to have a promising outcome on life.
Well, and as far as the scripture goes, the Apostle Paul says, "If you don't work, you don't eat," and that's pride of work. I mean, we take pride in what we do. All things do unto the Lord. There's a pride in what we do for a higher purpose, as opposed to self-pride, where we think we're somehow innately better than somebody else. So what you're talking about is the former rather than the latter, and I agree with that. The welfare. Listen, I've said on a number of occasions, and Doge has proved it. I wish we were continuing to push that Doge drum and beat it more. And I want Congress to go in and enact those cuts, which it hasn't done. Congress has been disappointing. But I've said over and over again, Doge has showed that the deep state of the federal government is a criminal enterprise. And what you just described, people just, turning it into a professional scam with these EBT cards and everything, getting these cards and using them on anything other than food. The more you build some sort of a welfare state, the more corrupt it's going to become. And it goes back to a basic philosophy. It isn't the role of the federal government to create a welfare state. I mean, if you're going to have that type of assistance, it should be at the state level, if at all. And I'm not advocating it. Don't get me wrong. What I am saying is state governments can make that decision one way or the other. But the federal government has no business being in the welfare business. And frankly, the welfare business is one of the reasons our national debt is about to topple us. And we just got to be tough about it. And the thing about it is, Donna, if and when I get to the Senate, and I'm going to probably be a Lone Ranger at first, but you've got to take a torch, figuratively, to this deep state. And we have to understand the role of government. We have to understand that if we don't take it out and take it down, it won't matter. Our economic opportunities, we're all going to be a lot poorer, because right now we live in the greatest economic superpower on the history of the earth, but we're fit for a fall. You and I, Phil, can go to Vegas.
This is the.
Yeah, go ahead. Donna, you there?
No, I'm okay with having something yeah, I'm there. It looks like I think the internet's been just a little bit laggy there for some reason.
I hear you.
You there?
I'm here. What I was going to say,
I'm all for it. No, you going ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. You and I, Phil, can go to Vegas if we wanted to and take 3 or 4 credit cards and run those credit cards up and have a good time. But once those credit cards max out and the bank shuts the credit off, we're going to be walking back to South Carolina. That's you know what I mean, or to North Carolina, and that's where we are as a nation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're running credit cards up, and we're enjoying running the credit cards up on a debt right now, but it's not going to last. We're working against the law of mathematics.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and don't get me wrong, I'm actually for people being helped when they need to be. I should have taken some when I got the divorce. I probably should have. I didn't want to. I had too much pride, and I just did not want to. So I just got out there and worked harder. But I would like to see that. I would love to see people work harder, because I'm seeing people on Facebook look like they need to be on a diet to me. But anyway, they're talking about how, well, I can't get cola with my food stamps or whatever it is now. Mm-hmm. I can't get this. I can't get that. I think there needs to be something like maybe food sent to people who need food, instead of you just going out just buying frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Well, I have at times, and maybe you have too. I've had somebody say, "Hey man, I'm hungry. Can you give me some money?" Mm-hmm. I said, "I'll tell you what, let's go in the store and I'll buy you something to eat right now." Nah. They turned that down because they didn't want the money for food to begin with. If somebody's hungry, Bible says feed the hungry, but the Bible, let's be clear, the Bible's not telling the government to feed the hungry. It's telling the church to feed the hungry. And so there's a noble purpose in charity, and there's a biblical purpose in charity. But at the same time, there's no noble or biblical purpose in perpetuating laziness, and therein lies the difference. So, but you know,
how can the generational, everybody's on food stamps, how can that be stopped? I mean, can it? I mean, or maybe give people, like, give them a year. I mean, give them a year on food stamps and welfare. That should be in plenty of time for people to go ahead and get their act together.
Well, for sure it can be stopped. It's our money. The Congress has the power to stop it today. Now, as a practical matter, how do you do it? First off, I think your suggestion there of putting timelines on it is appropriate. And look at what you did. You pulled yourself up by your bootstraps under difficult circumstances and went to work. And here's another topic you and I have discussed. But, you know, we discussed about the need to transform secondary and university education to teach vocations more. But the idea of teaching work ethic is something that needs to happen in the school. We know we need to be teaching the virtue of work and how work, pays off and rewards folks. And part of the problem is that you have a bunch of lazy people who are on welfare who don't want to work. Now, there are some who you can't fairly put into that category. But there are many, just like in the scam situation you were describing earlier, who make a profession of getting more and more government assistance without having to go out and work for it. And so not only do you put a timeline on it as well, but you put a work requirement on it as well. You're going to draw money from the government. You know, we got to go clean the streets. You're going to be out there cleaning the streets or whatever it might be. You're going to get graffiti off the side of the bridge where some gang has painted it. So there ought to be workfare, and then you get into, and let me just be clear. I don't think the government needs to be in the business of welfare, not the federal government. Okay, period. But we're talking about ways of transitioning out of it, because remember, we got a debt that's exploding. And you can't be giving lollipops to everybody. You start cutting this stuff, people are going to say, "Oh, I want my money," and then Don Brown's a blah blah blah. They're going to say stuff, but we got to do it for the good of the country and for the good of our kids and grandkids.
You know, one big lie, and we're going to have to go into a commercial break, but one big lie that was brought out, I think it was in the 1980s and 1990s, was that's not in my job description.
Yeah.
So many people. Pick up a broom and sweep. I don't care if you're the CEO. Find something to do. I mean, I've done that. I'm not too proud to do that. And I did that once. So because I handled government and corporate accounts when I was working with GTE. And so we had the sheriff who was coming in, because every time I went to his office, we could not talk. He was constantly being interrupted. So I said, well, just come to the office. I'm going to meet you in the kitchen. So just come in there. Well, I started washing up the dishes because people were just piling up the cuts. So the administrative assistant came in and said, "Are you trying to show us up?" And I said, "No, I've got the sheriff coming in. I want this place to look presentable for him. I don't want him looking at the mountain of coffee cups up there instead of listening to me." So, I mean, but when you, and that's another thing, people are kind of picked on when they actually try to go beyond their job description. I wish we would get rid of that sentence. No, that's not in my job description.
I agree with that. And that goes back to something I mentioned earlier, the need to teach work ethic. Not just vocations. We got to have more vocational education. Electricians, plumbers, carpenters, programmers, whatever, phlebotomists, but the need to teach the value of work ethic is something that we don't have in the schools. We need to put it there.
Absolutely. Let's go into a break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of the Cobb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring. But the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Okay, we are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge television talk show and radio talk show where truth matters. Thank you again so much for watching. I have my friend Don Brown with me right now. He can be your friend too. I want to tell you, you need someone like this as your senator. I mean, you got to. If I were in North Carolina, you better believe I'd vote for you, Don.
Well, thank you, Donna. And if you were running wherever you are, South Carolina, Alabama, North Carolina, I'd be right there beating the drums for you so fast it'd make your head spin, Donna. Of course,
I want to run for dog catcher.
Well, I think, listen, I think I would really, though, what you're doing is so important. You're having a bigger and wider impact than you would as a political figure, because we have so few true patriots in the media. We have some, but what you're doing is more important than what I'm trying to do, because you're getting the truth out and you're educating people, and you're doing it every day. So I would want to keep you right where I've got you. But if you decided to run, I'd be there for you. You know that.
No way. Okay, so I wanted to mention this because you're getting attention all over the place, and I'm following your interviews. I mean, you got Fox, you've got all this stuff. People are really paying attention to you, Don. You want to mention some of those interviews?
Well, we've got a few interviews. My favorite is when I'm on your show, Donna, when we're together. But no, we've had we did have Fox Business a couple of weeks ago. We've been on RAV a few times. We've been on One America News. Sean Hannity had us on the day we were on the day before they killed Charlie Kirk. Not been back on. I can tell you though that we are in a battle because the RNC is trying to freeze us out from a lot of these interviews. So we're battling, but Trump said fight, fight, fight. We're going to continue to fight, fight, fight. They're trying to freeze us out because they're trying to favor my primary opponent, the former RNC chair who pushed the jab from Republican headquarters in Raleigh, and who also attacked J6ers while I was defending J6ers, and who also endorsed Tillis even after Tillis tried to torpedo the nomination of Pete Hegseth. There's a clear fundamental difference ideologically between the two of us, but the big machine is trying to push the other guy. So, but yes, despite all that, we've been blessed to have a lot of good media opportunities, and we appreciate everyone that we get, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about crime, because we know it's just rampant. It's all over the place. But, of course, folks are not held accountable for things they do. And what do you think the reason for most of this is?
Well, it goes to a couple of things. One, it goes to the de-emphasis on morality in the public schools over the last 50 to 60 years has had a cumulative effect. Two, the explosion of the welfare state pushed by the Democrats has caused fatherless homes. I mean, the more governmental dependency, and when when you're encouraged to have kids to get money. Doesn't matter whether dad's at home or not. So that's been a big problem. Democrats' soft on crime approach, in addition to these political foolish games played by the explosion of welfare state, but the soft on crime approach has been a big problem. They've gone after the police to defund the police movement, which really reached its pinnacle during the George Floyd scam fiasco. And I say scam fiasco because George Floyd basically committed suicide by overdosing on fentanyl, and they wound up prosecuting an innocent police officer and tearing the country down. Another problem is that the Democrats have neglected criminal psychiatric facilities. That's been a problem here in North Carolina when they were in control. They allowed the largest psychiatric facilities to be closed down, and I'm talking about criminal psychiatric facilities. Some of these people, you might not be able to try them, but if you can't try them because they're so crazy, you still can't put them on the street. You got to lock them up. So criminal psychiatric facilities, long term, are going to have to be just as much a part of the criminal justice system as a long-term prison. So if I got somebody coming in and take, for example, a poor girl in Charlotte that was murdered on the light rail. We've all seen the Arena, the Ukrainian girl, 23 years old. I call her a girl. She's so young. The animal that murdered her, there was a trial set and it's been pushed back. Obviously, the defense will claim he is insane. Whether he's insane or not, he's got to be off the street. So you can't have not guilty by reason of insanity and turn somebody like that on the street, you understand? Somebody like that has got to be locked up permanently, whether it's from a conviction for murder or he's insanely dangerous. Because you see, the Democrats, one of the reasons they advocated closing psychiatric facilities is because of the stigma. They didn't want the stigma of mental blah, 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 blah. Well, stigma or no stigma, that girl could be alive today if that animal had been locked up in a psychiatric facility like it should have. So we're going to have a larger emphasis at the state and the federal level on psychiatric criminal facilities. These people have got to be off the street. Whether you try them in a court of law and convict them and they get a life sentence or death sentence, but if they claim that they are, legally insane, then you've got to move them to a long-term psychiatric facility and get them off the street. So the effect is the same. So we got to start rethinking the way we're doing things. Here in Charlotte, as soon as this poor girl was murdered, I was the first and the only Senate candidate on September 9th to come out and call for the National Guard to come in and reinforce Charlotte-Mecklenburg police. And I'll tell you, Don, 2 weeks later, on October 2nd, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Union joined me in that call. And now the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Union is requesting National Guard. And there's a lady running for mayor of Charlotte named Terry Donovan, running as a Republican. And I strongly endorse her. I talked to her just the day before yesterday, who's also calling for the National Guard to come in and stabilize the situation so Charlotte City Council can get its act together. Donna, there are fewer police officers on the streets of Charlotte than there were in 2018. Fewer police officers than in 2018, and the city has grown in population by 60,000. Our Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department here locally, the largest city in North Carolina, is strained and asking for help. And I'd like to see Trump send the National Guard here to Charlotte for at least 60 days. First of all, to stabilize the light rail system where that girl was murdered. And you give Charlotte-Mecklenburg City Council 30 days to get its act together. And if they don't get their act together, I would be in favor of the North Carolina General Assembly just either dissolving the City Council or taking control of it, which it has the authority to do, to reinforce the police department. Because you got to have officers on the street. The mayor of Charlotte, when this girl was killed, was talking about mental health. Okay, I understand mental health, but your first concern should have been for the victim and for the victim's family and for what it's going to save people rather than go immediately to mental health. It's a problem, but you've got to protect the population first. And so, we got to get tougher on crime. We got to get more officers on the street. Even in the neighborhoods in New York that have been, run down minority neighborhoods, they don't want to defund the police. They want to see police on the streets. Because the police on the streets are a deterrent to crime. We got to have more police on the streets, and we got to change our attitude and understand that crime is crime. You don't coddle it, and we got to take care of our law enforcement better.
Better believe it, and it's even in small towns. Right here in Abbeville, South Carolina, where I live, about 3,000 people in the whole community, but we're having to share police officers with the next little town on down, Calhoun Falls. And so, and they're being taken away from our area to go help them.
No, right. I was at the North Carolina State Fair, and Highway Patrol was good to us. By the way, they let us park in their reserve spots. Very, very grateful for that. Otherwise, I had to walk 10 miles. But I'm exaggerating for effect. But I would have walked. If the walk had been so long, I might not have even gone into the fair. But anyway, spent some time with some of those North Carolina Highway Patrolmen and found out some of the counties in North Carolina. One county, there are only 2 troopers. And the captain was telling me he has to pull his troopers from one county to rotate over in the other county because they don't have enough folks. And, we got to get our teachers better paid. We got to get our law enforcement better paid. We got to take care of them. And we've got to understand that thin blue line is the only thing that immediately deters the runaway crime spree that we're seeing right now. There have been 25 or so murders in the city of Charlotte since that poor Ukrainian girl was killed. And, in fact, there was a murder, you might not have heard of it, in kind of a high-end area in South Park just last week of a young lady, single young lady who was in her early 40s, a single mom who was studying to be a nurse in a higher-end area in South Park. And Charlotte Police Union president was explaining to me that what's happened is because of the crime spree increasing in uptown Charlotte. They call it uptown here. I like to call it downtown just to torque them a little bit. They've had to pull officers from other areas, move them into the uptown area, which of course leaves voids everywhere. So we just got to reorient our thinking. We got to support and back the blue.
Absolutely. Let's talk country. Let's talk farmers. A lot of farmers are just that they're struggling to make ends meet. You have all the regulations that are happening, and this is another thing that really came to my attention. So a friend of mine was from California, and he moved here in South Carolina a year before we did. So he and I we're just buddies. But what he talks about continuously is the weather being affected by, the wannabes who want to control the weather. But he's talking about the water and even the well water in the rural areas that's being affected by cantrells and all those things. And this is a Californian right here. And he said, I was telling you, most people in California believe exactly like I do. But we're having an issue with, so a farmer, if a farmer wants to, everything I sell is organic. There's so many stipulations, but then yet you're not really organic if you have issues with your water, even your well water.
Well, the problem, first off, we got to find a way to save a family farm. So you start there. And the problems are multifaceted. Regulations and allowing multinational conglomerates to buy large, huge swaths of American land, particularly the Chicoms and others, have effectively driven many small farms out of business. Then on top of that, you got major agricultural conglomerates like Monsanto and others that make it impossible for small farmers to compete. Then you're ordering them to use, seed that can't be reproduced, and so they got to buy new, genetically engineered seed every year. We'll start with a big picture to protect the American farmer. We've got to end foreign ownership of farmland, especially Chicom ownership, and especially from a national security standpoint around military bases. Secondly, we've got to, in many cases, ban the importation of certain foods from other nations. I've taken a stand for our North Carolina shrimping industry, and shrimpers aren't farmers. Well, I guess in some ways you might say they are farming the bottom of the ocean and the sounds for shrimp, but they are part of the food chain. Farmers are the most important part of our food chain. So are our fishermen. They're trying to shut the commercial fishermen down in eastern North Carolina at a time when we just saw about a month ago a huge importation of shrimp from Argentina, as I recall, that was radioactive. Mm-hmm. And I saw something about, we're going to start importing more Australian beef. No, we need to produce American beef. So we've got to use tariffs and trade also as a way of protecting our farmers. Third, it isn't just ending these large, purchases of land by foreign corporations, or that has to end, but also these large agricultural conglomerates got to be busted up. The Monsantos of the world, these big companies that are making it impossible for small farmers to thrive, have got to be busted up. And of course, inheritance taxes have to be ended on the family farm. So it's possible for a second generation to continue the farming operation without having to worry about paying so many taxes. It's going to shut the operation down. I'm going to go to war for our farmers and do everything I can to try to protect the family farm. My grandfather was a farmer. I grew up working on a farm, working in tobacco fields, to be specific. I know about all the blood, the sweat that's involved with that. I know what it's like to get up early in the morning. You're dripping sweat already by 7 o'clock because it's so humid. I know what it's like to fight off the June bugs. I know what it's like to be inside a tobacco barn. And it's interesting. We were at an event in Wilson County, North Carolina, and hosted by a pretty large farmer, a nice guy. And I said, "What are you farming?" He said, "Mostly tobacco and soybeans." So I said, "Well, how do you sell your tobacco?" And when I was coming up, my granddaddy, we'd grow tobacco and then take it to the warehouse for an auction in Williamston, North Carolina, 10 miles from where we grew it. And I remember the auctioneer going by and they're bidding on the purchaser, bidding on the tobacco prices. And we always wanted to get as high a price as we could get. But the farmer was telling me that never happens anymore. He has a contract, he sells it all to RJ Reynolds. In other words, it's becoming a large conglomerate business. So we got to protect here's the thing about it. Protecting the American farm is a matter of national security, because if local agriculture goes out the window because of overregulation to protect larger corporations, then that's a national security problem. And we got to be able to make and produce food locally. So this is one of the issues that is at the forefront for me. And it can be done, but certain steps have to be taken place. You got to get the Chi-Coms out of the way. You got the big conglomerates out of the way. You got to end all types of inheritance tax issues. You got to stop forcing them to use the only type of seed you say they can use. Right here in North Carolina, there's a battle over, the Amish have for years and years and years, milked their own cows and drank the milk. Now they're trying to say you can't do that. The government is. After the Amish have done it for, hundreds and hundreds of years. And by the way, the Amish had the lowest, COVID and death rate in the whole country. They never touched the stuff everybody else says. So they know something that these government bureaucrats don't know. But it's like Reagan said, here's the bottom line. You got to get the government off the backs of the people. You got to get the government off the backs of the farmers. And that's what I intend to fight for.
And then there's small businesses that are still struggling. And let's just take restaurants, for example. Okay, they're still struggling over the COVID fiasco we had, where they had to put all this extra money into, where you can't talk to people, you got screens and stuff. And it's for your security. And I'll tell you one that I thought was hilarious. This is during the COVID thing on Facebook. So this person stopped, they're doing a drive-through at a coffee shop. Well, the the person at the counter, the drive-through, insisted that you got to give me your credit card. She couldn't hand her the cup of coffee like this. It was just some kind of a fiasco, but she could take the person's credit card for payment. Right. There were so many loose ends to this whole thing. But now restaurants are still struggling after all of that because of all the added expense. Yeah. I don't see an end. And I love to cook. And several people, my friends have said, you need to open a restaurant. And I'm like, no way would I open a restaurant.
Well, you got the added expense. And also you have COVID created an additional layer onto the work ethic problem because it's paying people not to go to work. I was in an IHOP, having an omelet the other night. And they were so short staffed that the manager and franchise owner himself was waiting tables, and good for him. He's out there working, but people just not coming in. You can't keep help in. It's created a bad work ethic problem. And in the aftermath of COVID, people are so used to going to get those EBTs or getting other government assistance there that it's affected service. And if you think about it, before COVID, You would see McDonald's open 24 hours. You see all kinds of places open late into the night in 24 hours. All that shut down. It's had a negative effect all the way down the line.
And also, like tipping. I mean, you feel like you've got to tip extra when you go to a restaurant, a walk-in restaurant, because they have no help. People are doing the job of 2 and 3 people, and
Right.
we eat out less now because it's just too expensive. It's incredible.
It's too expensive. Not only that, you sit there for 30 minutes before the waiter gets to you or the waitress gets to you. And then you sit there 30 minutes after you finish waiting for the bill. And it isn't the fault of the poor waiter or waitress necessarily. It's the reality is that waiter or waitress is having to cover 10, 12 tables instead of just 2 or 3 because folks aren't coming up, folks aren't showing up, and it's just hard to get help. And that is, again, a post-COVID reality. And, goes back to what we were saying earlier. We got to teach work ethic. It's a good thing. So,
but it's a vicious cycle, Don. I mean, okay, you've got to hire enough people. I think some of the companies are using this as an excuse. You have to have enough people because if I go to your restaurant and I've got to pay double and I've got to pay more for a tip, I'm not going.
Right.
So if you'll hire more people, get more help, you might see your business improve just a little bit.
That's right. The quality of service is the reason I'll go to certain places over others, all the time. There's a restaurant here in Charlotte, South Charlotte, Trio, and usually they're very good on their service. And then you can go to some other places you sit, and I don't have time to sit, and the prices are exorbitant.
I don't either.
Right. I agree with you. Some of it's probably excuses by the business owner.
Absolutely. So let's talk education for a few minutes because we've got Andrea, who is taking her kids out of public schools, and she lives in North Carolina. So she's taking the kids out of schools because of the things that are being taught. So what is your answer to that? And we all know what they're teaching in schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, Andrea, assume you may be homeschooling or maybe doing a Christian or private school. I have been. My 2 girls were homeschooled for part of their academic career coming up. If it's done the right way, it is the most effective way of educating. Because first off, even if you remove the question of the garbage that is slipped into curriculum these days and is brainwashing our kids, if you remove all that, still education is better in a smaller classroom environment where there's close to one-on-one or one-on-2 or one-on-3 interaction with the teacher. So your kids are going to be able to have better reaction. Yeah, exactly. So now as far as what's going on in the classrooms, I would encourage you, Andrea, and others to get involved with organizations like Moms for Liberty and who are scrutinizing a lot of the garbage that's coming in, especially in the reading materials. And you don't have to have your kids in. Here's the thing about it. You don't have to have your kids in public schools to have a say on what's being taught in public schools because they're public institutions. So parents, grandparents, any citizen can voice concern on this. But I'd say, find a Moms for Liberty chapter and they can help educate on ways to attack. They're watching vigilantly a lot of the garbage coming in. And I think it's one of the great patriot organizations in the country today. So, but I congratulate you. I think it's homeschooling done the right way is the best educational product when you're able to pull it off. So, I commend you for having the courage to take this step.
I think so too. Tina has a question for you too, and this pertains to education as well. And her question about this is: there are some wonderful school teachers, some great ones out there. But couldn't we scrutinize some of the teachers that are out there who are teaching garbage?
Well, part of it has to do with the curricula being fed. Part of it has to do, with the fact that so many of are coming out of university systems that promote that sort of thing. Here's the thing about it. Yes, we can scrutinize. And if you stop and think about, we've talked about silver linings coming out of COVID. One of the reasons that Neil Youngkin got elected governor of Virginia is because parents were seeing online the type of garbage that was being taught. And there's nothing to stop parents from visiting classrooms. So, the best way to deal with the situation is to have parent groups who are willing to rotate going into the schools and volunteering and checking on what teachers are doing. You got to watch really closely what your kid is bringing home. You got to watch really closely what the kid's being assigned. And sometimes you might have a good teacher with bad curriculum because it's been assigned from up top. But the key is scrutiny. Jefferson said the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And that is true by analogy to the school system. The key to quality education to a large degree is eternal vigilance by parents. And as parents, it's our responsibility to try to be informed. Go meet your teachers, your kids' teachers at PTA conferences. Try to size them up, look at their background. If there's something that you don't feel right about, continue to look. And also, I would say the classes that you got to really watch are during social studies, English, history. This is when they have the best opportunity to teach revisionism and to teach communism, is in courses like this. The other thing is scrutinize your kids' textbooks, especially when you're talking about history, language arts, English, whether they're English reading assignments. But parents have to be vigilant and join with other parents who also want to be vigilant, who have like concerns in your area, and keep a watch on what's going on. And, request to come in and observe class. You got a right to do that. And if these teachers are out of line, it's interesting. This isn't exactly applicable, but a couple of months ago, or after Charlie Kirk was killed, I called for the firing of a Greensboro College, a Guilford Community College, I should say, a professor who praised the shooter. And so be on the watch for this sort of thing. And if something comes out that is that radical, then you call for their firing. But be a watchful eye. It's part of what we have to do as parents for the protection of our kids.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be your own kid. Back in the 1990s when Brad was in school, I actually went to the school because I heard he was having a party in every class. And so I asked the teacher, she told me what he was doing. He's just having fun, keeping his grades up and having fun. And I said, I can stop that without beating him to death. And she said, how can you do that? And I said, if you'll just let me stand on the corner, open the door, and just let me stand there and stare a hole in the back of his head, that'll stop it, because it will embarrass him. And I did that.
Right.
I stared a hole in the back of his head.
Well, I remember my daddy making me apologize to a teacher here or there, when I was third, fourth grade and a little bit of a brat, and so good parental support is the key. And sometimes you're right, it's our own kids. It was me. So sometimes it's the problem with material with the teachers or with the reading material or their attitudes. But again, paying close attention, especially in these formative years, is very, very, very important.
Well, parents, your kids are there to learn, not to have a party. Okay, so I had to handle mine, so you can handle yours too. Let's go ahead and call it a day. My goodness, I can't believe an hour is already over. How can folks donate to your campaign and maybe help you out with the campaign?
Thank you, Donna. Well, pretty easy. Go to brown4nc.com. Brown, BROWNFORNC.com. There's a donate button there. We need lots of money. Unfortunately, a statewide Senate race costs millions of dollars. We're facing a machine. We're fighting a machine. We don't have to raise as much money as a machine. We do have to raise enough to stand a boxing ring. And if we can stand a boxing ring, we will win this race. So we'd appreciate anybody coming on board and helping us. We need the help. Either we're going to complain about the government we're getting and do nothing, or we're going to roll our sleeves up and we're going to join together as we the people. So we need your help. And that is Brown, BROWN4FORNC.com. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, folks. It's time to roll your sleeves up. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and call it a day, and we'll see you guys next time around.